Okay, hello. So here we are in AP Psych on Tuesday, um, and like I said, many of your work, much of your work has been very good. Easy to grade. Most people do a really nice job. Just make sure you get all the multiple choice right. Make sure you're not messing up on any of those for the modules because they count a point a piece. Not that it's going to make a huge difference in your grade, but yeah, I'd make sure I get everything they're asking me on the FRQs and everything all set up. So, all right. So yesterday I think we went through conscientiousness and agreeableness. Now we deal with neuroticism, openness, and extroversion. So my top qualities, if you did that little conscientiousness, uh, if you did that little activity online that I sent, I ended up being high on these three things and kind of in the middle on those. Though as I get older, I get better at this. The conscientiousness I actually have been working on, but neuroticism. So this is the two different sides of this one is the kind of it's called emotional stability versus instability. So if you are stable, a stable would be somebody who's like very calm. If you are unstable, or your instability, this would be like anxious. Um, that tends to be the gist of those. Okay, openness is kind of like open to new experiences. So if you're high openness, I actually am. I don't really, I would say very low on the bigoted side. I don't really have too many bones in me about any sort of lifestyle. Yeah, I kind of live and let live. So openness is kind of like if you're cool with people having any kind of like different sexuality or different gender. You also usually it tends to be aligned with trying new stuff. So you're more likely to be adventurous and want to go off and go on crazy vacations and stuff. So that's usually with high openness. And then extroversion. I have I'm pretty extroverted. I'm outgoing. I like talking to people. Usually that's the way that they would say if you're very outgoing, you're more of an extrovert. If you're an introvert, that usually means that you get your energy from being by yourself. So outgoing energy is from others. And by the way, many of you are probably introverts. Introverts are, so that's on the low side of the extroverted scale. Introverts get their energy from themselves. So, like to think by themselves. They don't tend to be as outspoken. There was a great book. I'm trying to remember the name of the book. Something along the lines of like examples of introverts. I might have it here actually. I don't know. It was a really good book, but I read it a few years ago. But if you know somebody that kind of likes to keep to themselves, those are introverts. And both are very, very useful and helpful in society. And they're both fantastic. It's just if you're high extroversion, that means like you need others to be around you. This is a very, very hard time for extroverts when you're kind of stuck by yourself. It's tough. Okay, so I wanted to share with you because the interesting thing about these things is that they can predict behavior, and so I'll just read you a couple of these. Are just right from page 581. Shy introverts are more likely than extroverts to prefer communicating by email rather than face-to-face. So if you know somebody who just loves texting, and that's how they communicate with you, they're probably more of an introvert rather than calling you. Highly conscientious people earn better high school and university grades. So this is something I wasn't great at, but I wish I was. I'm getting better now. If I took my classes now, I would probably do better in school. They are all most likely to be morning types rather than evening types. So conscientious tends to align with what are called larks. They're morning people versus owls, who are more evening people. And then they say owls are more extroverted. So that goes against me because I'm more of a morning person. If one person scores lower than the other on agreeableness, neuroticism, and openness. So if you're scoring lower than one other person on these three things, it says marital and sexual satisfaction may suffer. And dryer's done. And then our traits infuse our language and text messaging. Extroversion predicts use of personal pronouns. Agreeableness predicts positive emotion words. Very true. And neuroticism, emotional instability, predicts negative emotion words. So even in emails and texts, like, you can actually see the differences in personality here. Now, it does predict behaviors, but it's not perfect. And Walter Mischel brings up this thing called the person situation controversy, which basically means you don't always like, if you are an extrovert. I can tell you from personal example, like, I've been in numerous parties where I didn't feel like a lot of energy, or I just didn't feel like talking. I don't know. I think everybody has their, some people are crazy on the weekend, but then in school they're like really calm and stuff. And so that's a person situation controversy, kind of like depending on your environment, which actually the next topic, which is called social cognitive, just kind of hammers that. The social cognitive aspect really does hammer that idea home. So the person situation controversy is, you don't always behave the way that your brain tells you to all the time. So the general consensus is, on average, people tend to these rules kind of like follow your traits. Okay, and then lastly, this is really interesting too. It's kind of at the on page 583, and you may want to read this because I always think this is kind of interesting. The genetic influences. So after they talk about this, they talk about the genetic influences, and they say your music is highly like the things that you enjoy with music, your personal space. So if you looked at your desk or your room, or your locker, or your, I don't know, like, just, you might notice it's pretty consistent. Like, if you're messy somewhere, you're probably messy somewhere else. If you're organized, you're probably organized somewhere else. Electronic communication, the way you talk is actually, like, the way you write is very genetic. I wanted to share one thing with you there. If you ever felt you could detect others' personalities from their writing voice, you're right. Like, if somebody uses like a lot of exclamation points, or uses all caps, it's kind of funny. It's like a genetic thing too. That's part of your personality. And then people's personal websites, or your Instagram or Snapchat, whatever you guys do, the ways that you describe yourself, are very, kind of like, it's almost like the way you describe it tells you more about your personality than what you put in there. Like, you can tell a lot about a person from looking at their, and it's not always quite evident. A lot of people have that like fear of missing out, and so they like overwhelm their website with all these like crazy vacations they've been on. But in secret, they're just really insecure because they want people to think they have this great life. So it's kind of funny that you can, if you look at people's personal stuff and what they post, you can tell a lot about that too. So, okay. So that's it. I'm going to post your homework, which is Module 58 answers. And you guys have done a nice job so far. So keep it up. Bye.